for his very first post-summit interview. The president of our great country. Sir, how are you?
Thank you very much.
We're glad you could be here.
Thank you.
So you said before the interview, you said, in 2 minutes, I will know. I watched very closely when you met him on the red carpet after both your planes landed. What vibe did you get in 2 minutes?
Well, you know, I always had a great relationship with President Putin, and we would have done great things together in terms of, you know, their land is incredible. The rare earth, the oil, gas, everything, it's incredible. It's the largest piece of land in the world as a nation by far. I think they have 11 time zones, if you can believe it. That's big stuff. But we would have done a lot of great things, but we had the Russia hoax, which stopped us from doing that. We would have done so great, but we had one of the great hoaxes. I mean, there were others, like the election itself, as you know, as you covered better than anyone. But it was a rigged election and a horrible thing that took place in 2020. But we would have had a great relationship, but we did amazingly well, considering, you know, he would look and see what happened. He would think we're crazy, you know, with the made-up Russia hoax. So we had something very important, and we had a very good meeting today, but we'll see. I mean, it's, you know, you have to get a deal. We agreed on a lot of points. I want to see people stop dying in Ukraine, and that's what's happening. We're losing 5, 6, 7,000. They're Russians, mostly Russians, and they're Ukrainian soldiers. There's some people dying in cities and towns where they're trying to blow up missile manufacturers and other things in some cities. I don't know if you know what's going on there, but there are a lot of people dying. And if we can end that war, it would be very good. And I was very happy to hear him say, if I was president, that war would have never happened.
Mr. President, that was my next question. He said at the joint press conference that and you have said this many, many times, and he confirmed for the world today, that if you were president, this wouldn't have happened. Did any of the specifics come up as to why he said that?
It did. It doesn't matter at this point, but that this war should never have happened. You know, a lot of wars should never have happened. There was stupid things go down and the wrong people are talking, but Biden was a terrible president in so many ways. He should have never let it happen, and it did. There are millions of people killed. I mean, it's the worst thing since, I see everyone saying worst since World War II by far. There's nothing even close. But we had a very good meeting today, and I think a lot of points were negotiated on behalf of Ukraine and on behalf of, you know, the whole NATO situation, where we're dealing very well with a lot of foreign countries that are great, European countries. Look, as far as I'm concerned, there's no deal until there's a deal, but we did make a lot of progress.
The meeting took place in this room.
Yeah.
This is where you met, right in this room.
Did. Well, let me examine it. Oh, there it is.
That's where you were sitting.
That's it. I would say that's it. Yep.
So did you have alone time with him?
Yeah, I did. I did, actually, after our speeches. He made a very good speech, and I also finished it up. And afterwards, we spoke. Right after that, we spoke very sincerely. I think he wants to see it done.
Yeah. In your press conference, you talked about a lot of things that you agreed on, and maybe one big issue you don't agree on. Are you prepared to go public with that?
No, I'd rather not. I guess somebody's going to go public with it. They'll figure it out. But no, I don't want to do that. I want to see if we can get it done. You know, it's not a done deal at all. Mm-hmm. And Ukraine has to agree. I mean, you know, President Zelensky has to agree. But it's a terrible war where he's losing a lot, and both of them are. And hopefully it can get completed. That'll be a great achievement for them. Forget about me, for them. And you'll save 7,000 lives a week. That's a lot.
I spoke very briefly to Secretary of State Rubio, and he did say to me, he goes, there's a difference when you're in the same room together than versus, you know, talking to each other through the press.
Even through the phone. You know,
even through the phone.
It's not the same thing. When you're on a telephone, it's not the same thing either. This was, I mean, we were together almost 3 hours, and it was very extensive. And we agreed on a lot of points. I mean, a lot of points we agreed on. But there's not that much. There's, you know, one or two pretty significant items, but I think they can be reached. Now it's really up to President Zelensky to get it done. And I would also say the European nations, they have to get involved a little bit. But it's up to President Zelensky. I think we are, and if they'd like, I'll be at that next meeting. They're going to set up a meeting now between President Zelensky and President Putin. And myself, I guess, you know, I didn't ask you about it. Not that I want to be there, but I want to make sure it gets done. And we have a pretty good chance of getting it done.
If you had to grade it on a scale of 1 to 10?
So I think the meeting was a 10 in the sense that we got along great, and it's good when, you know, two big powers get along, especially when they're nuclear powers. You know, we're number one, they're number two in the world, and it's a big deal. That's a big deal. You never want to even mention that word, the word nuclear, but we have a tremendous nuclear. You know, I rebuilt it when I was president, first term. And I hated to rebuild it. It was the one thing I hated to rebuild, but we had to. And we have the greatest nuclear force. We have the greatest military in the world, actually. And they have a big nuclear presence also.
Oh, you got to respect it. You
always have to respect it. You never want to use it. If you use that, it could be the end of the world. That's the kind of power we're talking about.
Let's talk about what brought President Putin to the table. I would argue that there are 4 things in my mind. If you think there are more or you don't think they were a factor, you did the trade deal with the European Union, and in that deal, you got nearly $1 trillion in commitments to purchase American oil. Yep. That's money that would otherwise be funding Putin's war machine. That's number one. India, 50% tariffs if they import Russian oil. You also, Vladimir Putin was moving at a speed you were comfortable with. So you said you would, unlike Biden, you wouldn't give weapons to Ukraine, you would sell weapons to Ukraine. The last thing, and I don't think it could be underestimated, is NATO is now paying twice what they were paying, and those countries that weren't paying their fair share are. Were those the 4 factors that brought him into this room today?
Well, NATO is now paying 5% as opposed to 2%, and they're paying it. And, you know, look, it's headed by, as you know Mark very well. He's a great guy and great people. The leaders, I got to know him very well about 6 weeks ago. And great relationship with NATO, European nations basically, but a great relationship. I don't want to say anything brought him to, he's a very smart guy. Nothing brought him to the table, so to speak. I think that he respects our country now. He didn't respect it under Biden, I can tell you that. He had no respect for it. I was so happy when he said, this would have never happened. All those lives would be saved if they had if we had a competent president, those lives would have been saved. It's so sad. You know, I've negotiated 5 wars to their end, and wars that were tough. India and Pakistan.
7. India, Pakistan, Israel, Iran in 12 days, Rwanda, the Congo, Serbia, Kosovo, Cambodia, Thailand, Azerbaijan, Armenia, Egypt, Cambodia. You played a role in all of those, did you not?
I did. I didn't want to include the decimation of the nuclear arsenal, and because I don't consider it necessarily, you know, conclusive. But we did something amazing, because for 22 years, no president was willing to do it. We decimated the nuclear capability, potential nuclear capability, which I think would have taken place within a month of Iran. And that was a big thing.